All right. Hopefully you guys can hear us. Let us know down in the comments if you can. I'm just pulling things up on my phone here so that I can respond to some questions as we go. But hopefully you guys are doing well today. Today we're going to be talking about the Skyline Joggers, Trail Joggers, and walking through some of the questions, a little bit of the backstory on those. If you want a super in-depth backstory, we did do that on the Live Ultralight podcast. If I remember right, me and Brigham kind of went off on that one and really dug into some details. And so if you really want every detail about the design process and the backstory and things like that, it's going to be a great place to go and get those details. On this particular live stream, though, we're going to be doing a bit of backstory and then answering a few of the questions. So if you have questions, make sure to be popping them into the chat as we go. And I'm going to be pulling it up here on my phone so I can watch that and answer in real time. Although we do have a few questions that were put into the Facebook group and some other areas that we'll already pre-plan to go over. So, Brigham, how you doing today? You're back from a vacation?
Yeah, doing well.
Good first day back in the office?
I feel like I have vacationed. So,
properly vacationed?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we got a handful of people here in the chat saying hello. I've got Warren Davis. Got some questions from him. Terry's in here. A few names that I recognize. Crazy Navy. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and just get started then. So the backstory on the joggers. So what inspired us, I guess, to get started in creating joggers? We already had the Sawtooth pants. That have been highly successful for us. Highest funded technical pant on Kickstarter. Continued to sell well over the years for us. We then released the Skyline shorts, which have done really well for us as well. And that's the short that we prefer, for a lot of these big efforts or 100-mile challenges. You'll see us a lot in these shorts, and we've even made videos about the benefits of shorts over hiking in pants. And but then we kind of come back to making a jogger. So let's I guess talk through the idea of like, where did this idea come from? What was like the end use case that we were thinking of when we started the design process on this?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it comes from between a pant like the Sawtooth pant and the shorts like the Skyline shorts. There's a gap there. They're very, very almost polar opposite type of bottom for your lower half to hike or do an outdoor activity in. And there's a way to kind of take benefits of each and apply them to a pair of pants that might suit people's preferences a little bit better. Meaning, there's things about shorts that are great, but they leave your legs exposed. I know that's already been said, but really, for a pair of pants, something for maybe lighter, faster pursuits, maybe higher mileage pursuits, where you want more mobility, more agility. You want something that's less restrictive, a fabric weight that's, substantially lighter. So I think, just like a short, a pair of shorts like the Skyline shorts that leans heavily on that side of comfort and mobility, versus, some pants that have more features, more pockets, maybe a more robust fabric, adjustable this and that. They're substantially heavier, warmer, more restrictive. And, I thought it would be a good kind of way to fill the gap for, activities or hikes or, treks, backpacking trips that do lean more heavily on the mobility side where, after the more miles you go, the more resistance on your body from your clothing takes place. That's all resistance that's requiring a higher output of energy on the body. So, just something more comfortable over the long haul.
Yeah, I think I would approach the the reason why in kind of a similar way, but really they're substantially different products. Like the Sawtooth pants or any, like hiking or outdoor pant, I would say, shorts, joggers, they fall into really different categories. And the more time that you spend outside, the more you realize how big those categories matter for different pursuits. For instance, over 5 years ago, I was probably pretty exclusively hiking in the Sawtooth pant. And I can think back to like hiking trips where they were, even with the vents and the things that were built into them, they were just flat out too hot, too restrictive, and over a course of a long day, not comfortable. It doesn't mean I don't use the Sawtooth pants today for specific pursuits, but there's a handful that I would never consider them for. And then kind of same with the shorts. Just this last month, we went and did a trip where it was hot. At the truck, it was nearly 80 degrees when we got out. So all of us were wearing shorts, and then we got torn apart by a trail. It was just rough. There was bugs, a lot of bugs. I got bit so hard that the top of my foot literally swole up and put pressure on my tendons, and I thought I rolled my ankle from a bug bite, right? It was like incredibly bad conditions where all of us wished that we had brought joggers on that trip, but it was so hot, right? And so there's definitely scenarios for each and every piece. And I think as we ship out these hundreds and hundreds of joggers that have already been purchased, you'll see that in the feedback in the comments. The more you use them, the more you realize just how specific of a tool they can be and where they work the best. Even over this last weekend, I was out hiking and was hiking kind of covering ranges from about 9,000 to 11,000 feet. Some of this area really didn't have much of a trail, more of kind of wayfinding, going through brush, thorns, etc. And I wore the joggers, but it was 70 degrees at the truck, right? 70 degrees at the truck is pretty hot. That's usually where I'm going to wear shorts no matter what. But I was able to protect my legs from bugs, even though I was getting bit up on my arms and stuff. I wasn't getting bit on my legs. And then when it cooled off, there's still snow up that high, at least around these parts. So that wind starts blowing. And thankfully, I've got on the joggers and was able to stay comfortable until I got into camp, which was after dark. So you're out there moving and whatnot, clean after dark. And usually, right as it's getting dark, wind picks up on the top of mountains like that. It starts blowing. So there's just this really interesting, I think, point where there's really a use case for each piece. And sometimes it takes sometimes it just takes designing the next piece to then see the gap in where we've created this to the point that we're at, right?
Yeah, and then it just takes, a few experiences in different environments where you see the shortcomings of what you have. And I would say we went into quite a bit more depth in this topic on the podcast. But if you kind of listen to that and kind of what we've been talking about, that the point is to just highlight that there's gaps, there's not, just, we're not here to like have a camp for shorts and pants or joggers or this and that. There's preferences, You
will still see me in shorts, absolutely, and you'll still see me in Sawtooth pants. One thing that I was going to add to this is this year in particular, I have done a little bit more testing on like wearing gear and really trying to wear gear that vents and is appropriate for conditions. And I've seen a massive, like you guys, if you follow the channel for a while, you've probably seen me talk a lot about like how much I can sweat. And that's something I kind of measure. I really watch hydration. And I've seen some massive differences in the amount of sweating that I do when I do get into more appropriate, I guess, or more vented or more breathable gear in the heat. And this has definitely been a part of that specifically through kind of the start of summer here. So, all right, we're getting a ton of questions in here, which I am excited that we have questions because that means that we'll have a much better Q&A section of this. So I want to get to the questions really quick, so I don't want to spend too much time on the backstory because we have done that. But just to kind of wrap up this idea of the backstory. So these joggers, the idea was that we would create something that is going to protect the leg a lot more, kind of work sometimes as like a wind pant, but be something you can wear all day, durability, venting, but still be incredibly light, right? At 6.5 ounces. They're insanely light as most people's shorts, half the weight of a lot of the lightest weight backpacking pants out there. So they really fall into a really cool category. And we just tried to make them, like Brigham said, a piece that's going to be highly mobile, something you can move quickly in, stay comfortable all day in, take the edge off of, a cold wind, but also highly vent very, very well in the heat of the day. So yeah, I guess anything else, Brigham, that we want to cover, at least for the sake of the live stream, on backstory or
It's probably good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
we did test a lot.
If we go too much longer, we'll just be kind of replicating the podcast discussion.
We will be, so.
Which definitely check that out, because you can kind of get a lot of kind of more of the conceptual ideas about it in the podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to start working through some of these questions that I find here. Bear with me because I kind of have to pre-read them before I say them out loud. So there may be a little bit of a delay. How comparable would these joggers be to a pair of climbing pants in terms of material? Do you think they're tough enough to last if the use is outdoor/indoor climbing? I personally don't climb, so I'm probably not best suited to answer that, but I don't think these are built with the durability that a typical climbing pant would require, because you're literally leaning your whole body against all sorts of rocks and sharp edges and things like that. So I would probably say it's probably, we would not consider this a climbing jogger.
No, I don't climb either. I am familiar with most of the fabrics used in climbing pants or rock pants. This is not necessarily in the same kind of classification of fabric. Yeah, you could do it maybe once or twice. I don't know how many times, but it's not really what's intended for. It might not be durable enough for it.
Yeah. Laid back traveler says, aloha gentlemen, I live in the tropics but need long pants for a lot of trails here. How adaptable are these in humid or warm climates?
Well, so the kind of couple of really good things they have going for them in that application are they're very lightweight. Lightweight lends to drying quickly. They're also polyester, which further lends to drying quickly. They are, ventilated in, the whole outseam from the outer hip to the cuff, in the crotch gusset, in the back, under the waistband. So there's definitely some ventilation built into it, and it's going to be beneficial, especially in terms of protecting the legs, just against like brushing up against, whatever foliage might be, on the side of the trail or not on the trail. It's hard to say like how hot,
Yeah, I think like there are sometimes like in really humid environments, things like that. Sometimes you want a shirt that holds onto a little bit of moisture. That's where like even cotton can actually perform. But I'd say on the legs, I still would prefer something like this because of just chafing. And so they're going to dry really quickly. You're going to get some good venting. So I think you're going to be pretty happy with these in those conditions.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed to find like a pair of long pants in jogger form or traditional form that's going to be this lightweight, ventilated, kind of body mapped with ventilation and features that would lend themselves to working well in that. Because hot and humid that's a tough order for most clothing. So might be hard pressed to find many options out there that are kind of more lighter, more breathable.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Bobby is asking, how well do the joggers hold up through the occasional bushwhacking? This is such a objective question, so I just want to throw that out there to begin with, right? Because occasional bushwhacking can mean something to one person and something totally different to another person, right? If you're like an Alaskan guide, right, like these are not going to hold up to what you're experiencing, like just battling through like completely no trail situations and like a lot of it, right? These aren't going to be what we're going to recommend. But occasional bushwhacking, or you're going on an established trail that's been overgrown, for the most part, that's where these are going to do just fine. Last week, I was kind of, like I said, going through some stuff like this, a lot of game trails and like old horse trails that were grown in, a lot of like thorns and things like that. And I actually expected them to get a little wear on them because of thorns in particular, and they made it through with no issues. So that would kind of be like, to me, that's probably the difference. If you're talking just like pushing through some willows and stuff like that, I think they're going to do great, and I don't think you're going to have any durability problems. If you're talking about like really sharp edges, that's where I could see you like actually puncturing a hole in these. But I don't know if that's subjective or like specific enough, but it's really a tough question to answer. I mean, if you're doing actual bushwhacking, I mean, I'm going to tell you to go to a pair of pants.
Yeah, mile after mile, you just want something heavier.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What are so Glacier, I don't know if I ever say his name right, but I recognize who you are. You've been on a bunch of these. What are the inseams for the regular and talls? So we have a size fit guide, which I don't know. I think a few people weren't able to find it on the website, but if you just look on the listing, you can open it up right there. And basically what we tell you is if you're under like a 33-inch inseam, you're going to order a regular. And if you're over a 33-inch inseam, you're going to order a tall. So like, for instance, I'm a 34, I order a tall. And I think on there, we also say up to like a 35-inch inseam is kind of the range for the tall. So 33 up to 35. Because I did see another question, actually the one right after this from Andrew. It says, I'm 6'5". Do they come in a tall? Yes, Andrew, they do come in a tall. So you just want to check your inseam, Andrew, because if you're 6'5", you can still have a different level of inseam. In fact, we had a guy here that worked for us that, he was like my same height, but he had like a 2-inch longer leg than he had, like a 36-inch inseam. And then I've seen people that are taller than me with, even smaller inch inseams. So just look at the sizing guide and it's going to tell you, but we did make these in a tall. And as someone with a 34-inch inseam, I love the talls. I really like them. So if you're in that ballpark of a 34-inch inseam, I think you guys are going to really like the fact that we have a tall on this model. Okay, Michelle Gibson's asking, any plans to introduce a women's version, or might the small size fit me? So we have put these on a few women with good success. Are they a women's cut? Absolutely not. But right now we do not have any developments rolling on a women's like size fit sample. We haven't started testing in that. And typically what we do here at Outdoor Vitals is we launch the product, we judge the success of the product, we get the feedback on the product, and then we will move into the potential of expanding it to a women's size set sample. And so based on that and whatnot, like this will be a product that we're going to watch pretty heavily, even over the next couple of weeks, see the input back and consider it. Now, I know that that's a really frustrating answer for women, right? Because it's like, well, why don't you build stuff for us? Why don't you just release it right out of the gate? And really the answer to that is we do have women's cuts in certain things. And the idea is that sometimes, it's like the chicken or the egg. Well, if you build it, then women will buy it and so on and so forth. If you don't have it, then we can't buy it. So you can't see the number of purchasers go up because as a small, privately owned company without big investors, without any investors, we can't just like fund and build things and then hope that it happens. And so we do release things in women's cuts and then we watch the purchases. And so far we just have not been able to see a big swing even in the women's models of things kind of tick up. And so we do fully anticipate to continue to roll out women's products, but they're more on a one-on-one basis, based off of demand, based off of a handful of things. And I would also say with this, just because we likely may start some development and testing fits on women for this, don't expect that to be a fast process because we did do a pair of pants in the past for women and we learned a lot. And mainly we learned that we need to do a lot of extensive testing and basically you start from the ground up on a size on a shift like this, especially for the pants. If we were designing something that was 100% like completely stretchy and all that, like maybe you can get away with designing it faster, but we'd want to put these on a lot of people, a lot of bodies. And so it's going to be a process to do that. But we are hearing you and we are aware of it. We are trying to balance as much as we can our own investment into the women's side. And then, with the hope that we get the purchases to come back and justify that investment. So yes, no, we do not have a women's version in this. women have worn them and liked them. That's not going to be the case for every woman. There's a lot of body shape differences, even women to women and guy to guy, right? So it's really going to be specific on whether it may or may not fit you. But we are going to continue to develop women's products, and we actively are looking at that. So great question. Looks like we answered that. For potential, okay, so Glaziered asked, for potential rain trips, do you bring lightweight rain pants when you're wearing the joggers?
Well, yeah, so I think that's also going to be a bit subjective, because to what, one person, a lot of rain is not much rain to another person, depending on, where you live and what you're used to. But just talking about, some rain protection as a characteristic of the joggers, that it kind of plays into part of the development, the inception of the joggers themselves, this idea of a pant that if we can't wear shorts because we think or we understand that it might not be a safe decision based on the conditions that we anticipate we might be in. So, in other words, if I think I'm going to go on a trip where I would otherwise wear shorts because there might be some rain or some wind, that's where these come in, because they're going to offer much more mobility, comfort, low restriction, closer to a pair of shorts than would a traditional pant. But when the weather does come in, they're going to protect you from the wind and the rain way more than just your shorts would. And a kind of a good example of that is like on the Skyline Trail a couple years ago, where we had to bail because of snow. We were all wearing shorts, and I would have loved to have these joggers instead of the shorts on that entire trip. So I would have had almost all the benefits of shorts on that trip, but with the benefit of wind protection and some
Hail
what
protection.
would not have been fail-proof waterproofness.
Yeah.
It would have absolutely retained a lot more heat that was sucked away from the hail and the rain and the wind. So, yeah, these have a DWR. The DWR will eventually wear off. They're not meant to be rain pants. They're not meant to replace rain pants. So in terms of the question of if there's going to be rain, do I take this and rain pants? I would say if I know it's going to rain for more than an hour every single day, or I'm going to be hiking in rain for more than an hour or two every single day, I'm going to bring rain pants. I'm not just going to rely on these, especially if I'm talking like Northern Hemisphere, Rocky Mountain type elevations, where you're going to have constant wind. But part of the intent with these is to provide a significant boost over exposed skin, right? So even if they do get a bit wet, they're going to hold off hypothermia way better than just your shorts. They're going to retain enough heat to kind of keep you at a safe level, body temperature-wise, than you would be if you just decided to just plow through with your shorts on. And we've talked about wind pants before. After that trip and other trips, we kind of toyed around with wind pants, and then during the development of the joggers, realized these pants, they weigh 6.5 ounces, but you can wear, they're not just a dedicated wind pant or a dedicated rain pant. And so let's just say somebody wants to pack the joggers as an extra piece of clothing while they're wearing shorts on a backpacking trip. These are going to have much wider use case than a dedicated wind pant. That dedicated wind pant is going to be much less comfortable and ideal to hike in, all day long, day after day, than these. And I would say these are probably going to provide 80 to 90% of the wind protection of a dedicated wind pant. But I'm never going to wear a pair of wind pants all day. I'm just not going to. But I would wear these day after day. I have done it.
Yeah, I mean, a wind pant, the way that they're typically treated or whatnot, I'm just saying your typical wind pant, right? They're going to hold in, they're going to trap moisture inside a lot more. They're usually bigger and baggier to just catch twigs, debris, wind. They're made out of usually really light materials that are going to be non-durable. So catching twigs that are sitting on the ground, highly likely to damage those, especially if you're wearing them long time. So you get a way bigger range of use case out of these because of the increased durability for sure. And then we're focusing on venting versus like trapping in that sweat or output, right? So there's just a very broad use in this, and this kind of follows up with a question from Casey, who asks, what can you expect from a quick dry perspective? I do a lot of trails in wet areas, and soaked pants really hurt a day unless I'm switching to rain gear. And so to kind of go back between that question and the following one, I would think of it a lot like there's a lot of times when I'm out backpacking and it starts to rain and I'm still hiking, right? So, and I know I'm going to be hiking for a few more hours, and I know the rain's going to stop in 30 minutes. And I may not bother to have brought rain pants, or I'm not going to bother to put on rain pants because I know that it's going to rain for a little bit, but I'm going to have tons of time for my shorts to dry back out, and just I'm going to be comfortable, right? I might get a hair cold for a minute in the rain, but then I'm going to instantly be back to heat and be drying those out. I'd kind of think of that, like I'd just take that perspective and push it just a little bit farther with the jogger, because they are 100% polyester. They're going to dry insanely fast because of the thin material and the venting and things like that. They're going to dry faster than, I don't want to say like any pair of pant, but likely about any pair of pant. And so allowing yourself to get a little bit of wet on them, say in the middle of the day when you know you're going to have some sun exposure after or have plenty of time for them to dry, they're going to do really well in that scenario. They're also going to do well with, like we were getting hailed on in that example on the High Line. We've also, even like light snow or something like that DWR, and just being a pant, like it's gonna do well and things like that. So, I don't know if that kind of answers that, but
they're a great pant to be wearing when you're having that battle of like, I do not want to put on rain pants. And you keep telling yourself that because you do not want to put on rain pants, but it's raining. This is what I want to be wearing, and this is what I would definitely choose to wear in that type of conditions. We talked about it like with the Grand Canyon. We had rain, hail, and snow. And that was a high mileage, 50-mile day. And that was the scenario. It was like, you have to keep going at your pace so that you finish the trip. But you also know, I knew it was going to rain, and then I knew it was raining. And this is the great that's a good example of that type of use where I felt 100% confident without having any rain pants, even though I knew it was raining or going to rain or snow, because the last thing I want to do is put on rain pants. Like that's like a last ditch. Once you commit to it, you're just committing to significant discomfort for a long time.
The thing about rain pants, even more than a rain top, right, is typically your legs, especially while you're hiking, are generating a lot of heat, right? That's the major muscle group that's powering you forward and up the mountain. And so the second you put on a rain pant, you get uncomfortable usually from the amount of heat and output and moisture output from your own body pretty quickly. So like I'll put on a rain top, like I'll put on our Tusher rain jacket, and I'll still really debate whether I'd ever put on rain pants, because if I'm actively still moving, I know it's like minutes, before you feel the heat trapped in by a rain pant. So that is where these shine is, if you can avoid a rain pant, situationally, that's where these are going to shine. Not having to like instantly go to like an overheat or a moisture trapping situation or so on and so forth, especially if you're being active and moving. If you're in camp, oh, absolutely put on a rain pant. Like you're not moving, it's going to keep you comfortable, it's going to keep you dry. But like if you're hitting a rainstorm right in the middle of the day, you still got 10 miles to go. It's pretty easy to be like, no, I'm just going to hike through it in the joggers, and they'll probably be dry by camp or shortly thereafter. So. Jack is kind of wanting to know if these are good for sun protection. These are, so he says, I want long pants for sun protection, but otherwise, whatever product will be the coolest possible in hot, humid conditions during summer training hikes. Are these the answer? Of course, we're going to say yes, Jack. These are the answer. That is like a lot of what these are designed for, right? It's just that extra protection, whether it be sun, bugs, debris, dirt, but also to keep them like as close to the breathability of a short as we possibly could. So
Goes
adding,
back, yeah.
Go ahead.
Goes back to the gap between shorts and pants. Shorts have no sun protection, right? But you want to be as comfortable as you can, as close to the comfort of shorts as possible. That's a lot of the concept of these. So they have a UPF 50 plus in the main fabric. The ventilated knit fabric that's 1.5 inches wide down the sides. We don't have a UPF rating on that. It is knit. It is a non-see-through mesh, so it's probably not going to have a very high rating. But the main 85% of the pants is a UPF 50 rating. So yeah, it's going to give you great sun protection, but a lot closer to the mobility and comfort of a pair of shorts.
Yeah. I think this is a good one here. There are two lengths, a regular and a tall. I assume that the regular comes to above the ankle, which would make sense to get the tall if I want the pant to come down to the top of my shoe. I'm 5'10". Where do you feel like the joggers hit on most people? Like, because there's a lot of joggers out there, and they can wear a little bit differently. Some have a much bigger or longer bottom cuff on these, and they can be a lot tighter to the leg and more stretchy. So maybe let's just talk about like how ours fit and typically where they're hitting people.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the 80% bell curve of people that this is going to fit really well, it's going to be right at or right above the ball of the ankle for most people. I'm 6 foot, 32-inch inseam. I wear the regular inseam. I do not wear the tall. I don't want the cuff to drop below that ball of my ankle. It wouldn't be the end of the world if it did, and it probably will on some people. Like for the regular inseam, if there's people with shorter inseam lengths or they're just generally shorter, it might if they have really skinny ankles. But it's really kind of intended to catch on top of the ball of the ankle. Yeah, so I mean, the taller your inseam is for whichever size, that's going to vary a little bit from person to person.
Yeah, I would add with this, our cuff is not overly tight, so it's not going to like suck down really tight against the foot,
right?
Or the leg, the lower leg, which is nice because then let's say you're taking a big step up and over something, it's going to be able to like drift up a little bit, drift down a little bit, and then the way that I wear like our Darn Tough socks is typically what I'm wearing when I'm hiking, and so my Darn Tough socks that I wear come up to my ankle, just above my ankle. So then essentially they go right up to the bottom of this cuff. The cuff usually will just barely overlap it. So I don't have any ankle exposed when I wear these personally. And one of the best ways that I would say, like, if joggers are right for you, if you're someone who's wearing trail runners while hiking, but you still like pants, like that's where it's really easy to be like, you're a jogger type of person. You're going to love these with trail runners. And so, yeah, trail runner, pair of Darn Tough socks, and then these, like, I'm getting no, like, exposure on my ankles, so I'm keeping dirt and everything off of them. But then these aren't, like, pasted to your leg. Like, you're not going to get to the end of the day for, again, maybe the bell curve of people and have, like, an indent where these were on your leg, right? They're loose.
Yeah, so it's not going to fit, like, the tube shaft of a sock where you really generally want that to stay in place via tension or friction. That's not how this is designed. It's designed to kind of float freely without just being this excess, opening. So it's a very close tapered fit, but it is designed to have freedom of movement so that it's not ever just kind of sticking to your ankle.
We got Mad Max Outdoors asking when they ship. They are shipping. I guess we have some other people saying that, mine have already shipped. Can we, all right, can the fabric handle being treated with permethrin? Lots of ticks in my area.
Yeah, 100%. And one tip on ticks, the nice thing about this type of leg opening, having an elastic cuff, if it's tick season where you live or you frequent places where you're consciously, combating against ticks. The nice thing about this is pull your socks up over the cuff, and that elastic cuff being tapered and elastic makes it much more comfortable than if you're kind of trying to like bunch up a pair of pants and pull your socks over that. So that's a really useful and effective way when you're in tick country to help prevent, whether that's with or without permethrin, but just another little tip for being around the ticks.
Yeah, you completely seal off that bottom part of your leg, which is super nice. Avalanche VM is asking, on the sizing chart, you're just giving like ranges, but it doesn't really say like size by size the difference in lengths. So more or less, like the sizing chart's going to help you dictate it. Is there going to be a difference in size from a medium to a large or a small in the inseam? A very small one, and a lot of that is taken up by just the extra girth. So like if you lay them flat on a table, potentially, but they should fit and wear the same. So you're getting into like really technical fit, like gradient and sizing charts and all that kind of stuff. And in reality is like the sizing chart is going to be your best bet to base everything off of. But yes, the length is going to be, within a centimeter longer going from say a large to a medium.
Yeah. If you really want to know, is the large inseam longer than the extra or smaller than the extra large? No, just there. It's a negligible difference. So like between a XL and a 2XL, inseam length is the same. The only one where I would say there is a more noticeable difference is between medium and small, because in our testing and research, more sizes that would be likely to wear the small, they also have significantly shorter inseams. So the medium to the small is about a half an inch difference in inseam length.
Okay. Here's some kind of subjective questions, but we got J3 hikes. Doing my 100-mile challenge on the Colorado Trail. Will these work great? Another guy, Chris Vaughn, saying, would these pants be great for Philmont? That's northern New Mexico. Yes and no. It's all weather dependent. It's all like, what you're dealing with. Me and Brigham both hiked 100 miles last summer on the Colorado Trail in these, and they did great, right? I mean, we were still testing and prototyping. We came back and made some tweaks to make them even more breathable. And we were in like this massive heat wave, and it was still fine. So my answer is yes, they're going to be fine on the Colorado Trail. They're going to be good. If you're someone who really wants to hike in pants, they're going to be your best option for sure if you want to be hiking in pants. But if you're weighing joggers versus shorts on the Colorado Trail, that could be more of a preference.
Do you typically find yourself layering up a lot? I'd say Tayson probably is a heavier sweater than me, but I think I am also at the upper end of the spectrum compared to most people. So you're talking about like two people that I would say generally are on the higher end of the temperature. We're always hot, and we both wore those, and that was intentional, so we could kind of speak on the subject of like middle of summer, it's 85 degrees. Can we do this? Yeah. Is wearing shorts less hot? Also, yes. But you have to weigh out everything. You got to weigh out every aspect that you can think of with the trip and the conditions. But yeah, I mean, we used Colorado Trail 100 miles during a heat wave, and I would have much rather been wearing these than pretty much any other pair of pants.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Do the vents allow bugs in?
No.
That's a good question. Let me just try to show you this vent. So you can see this is the vent. I'm kind of stretching it out there. When I stretch it, like I can barely see the color of my fingertips in there. So no, I mean, a bug cannot get through this venting. It's not like an open vent where you like unzip it and it just opens the fabric wide open. So no, a bug cannot get in through the venting. Does that mean like a mosquito couldn't potentially bite through that? Maybe, but it's a little bit thicker. So I don't know. But it's not going to climb through it.
Yeah, no, it's not going to enter. It's not going to pass through it, but you might get bit.
Okay. Let me just see if there's any other questions here. If you've got any other questions, now would be the time to ask them in the chat. Melissa is asking if we can post some pictures of females wearing the joggers on our website. Yeah, I think we can work on trying to get these on some women and get some photos. That's something we can for sure do. Let me just check if there was any questions that we had prior that we have not yet covered. So I think Brigham mentioned this. They are a 50 UPF rating. Let's okay. There's two here that I think are worthwhile. One, can I run in these? And the answer to that is yes. I ran in these training for my 100-miler all spring. Anytime that it was really windy out, I would wear the joggers instead of shorts. And they work really well for that. And what I mean by that is I would often, start wearing them, and you get out of the car, you're grateful you have them on because it is whipping wind, cold wind, etc. I'd run for an hour, 2 hours. I get to the end, and I remember this happening multiple times where I'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot I was wearing joggers, because they run, for me, they run about as well as shorts as far as just mobility. So that's really like the big benefit with the joggers, is just that mobility is so good. And that kind of comes into another question, which is, we had a question, asking, why did we make them like a jogger versus just your typical pant bottom on this? And really the answer to that, I believe, is the mobility aspect of, right? Like I couldn't, running in a pair of like open-ended bottom pants, like you're gonna get it whacking against your other leg as you pass. It's gonna be open. It's gonna be there's like, it's not as mobile. It's just like the answer is, it's just not as mobile, right? And so less restrictive. I wouldn't be running in them, I guess, is the answer. And so by having them like this way, yes, you can run in them, but also too, when you're doing 20-mile days, which we 100% believe that these are the best, long distance pant out there. That's because if you're doing a long distance hike and you're hiking 20 miles a day over and over, this jogger style of a bottom is going to be much more mobile, much more comfortable, and really stand out in those situations. So anything on either of those two subjects, running or the bottom
running, especially cold weather, wintertime, anytime there's wind. And I wouldn't say anytime. If it's 85 degrees and there's wind, I'm not running in these. But the shoulder seasons where it is windy and you do have the potential for rapid weather pattern changes, and then, wintertime. I mean, I've mentioned this before. Like, there were a couple times this winter where I went out of town and took my running shoes and thought I had packed these, and then ended up not packing them and ran with, just my normal Skyline shorts. And the difference between that and when I run in the wintertime with these is, it's like night and day. Much better run, have a much better run. Knees aren't numb by the time you get back. So they work great for running in the really, really cold temperatures.
George says he's taking him to Kilimanjaro next month. That'll be cool. Send us a photo. Are we offering these in other color options? Not at the moment, but based on some of the success it seems like we've been having right out of the gate, that we'll definitely look at color options and things like that. Have mosquitoes bitten through the joggers? So that's a great question. I have not had any bugs bite through the main face fabric here. I think it's dense enough, the weave is tight enough that I've never had that at all. Could they potentially on the vent? Potentially. I've never had it. I think it's just like the vent is so much smaller. You're moving with it typically. Like, I've never had it.
So I would be careful on making a claim, because I've had mosquitoes bite through much thicker, much heavier fabric, whether that's a top or a bottom, than this. So can it happen? I think it definitely can. I would say, similar to you, I have not had a mosquito bite me through the joggers anywhere, but I have in other clothing, like I said, that's thicker, heavier. I have had mosquitoes bite through. I've been in a lot of mosquito infested places, so I think mosquitoes actually can bite through a lot more If they're determined, they can get you. But as a whole, I frequently use joggers and like our Nebo windbreaker for bug protection rather than spraying myself, because I don't like bug spray. I don't like to spray it. I don't like the oiliness and everything. And so it is a great barrier that does seem to, stop a lot of the mosquitoes from actually biting.
Yeah, Dale has a really good question here. Will lightweight long johns fit under them? And the answer is yes. In fact, I believe that a pair of, say, like our Highline thermals mixed with the Skyline joggers, I mean, that combination is
That's
impressive.
A cozy combo.
It's a great combo because combined their weights are like 10 ounces, something like that, maybe 11. That's still lighter than a pair of pants, but it gives you incredible versatility, right? Now you can layer up, like let's say you get to camp, you throw on the Highline thermals, the Skyline joggers on top, and now you've got this combo that's going to be way warmer than your typical pant. But then you can sleep in the Highline joggers, or you've got this like good mix and match that's still lighter than a pair of pants. And so having more options and more ability to choose what you need for the situation is always going to be better. And they work fantastic layering with a long john, a thermal, something like that underneath. And so, yes, we should have even talked about that earlier.
Well, that's a good, just for like your general, hiking, like for wintertime, whether you have snow or not, I would assume if you got snow, you might or should be wearing some gaiters. So it kind of doesn't matter if they're tapered or not, but yeah, to pair these up with like a base layer bottom long john in the wintertime, for like, that's like what you're hiking in, that's a good combo. And then it's super cozy to sleep in too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. I feel like we've covered this pretty well. Like, what temperatures would we wear these in? I don't know, like if we would necessarily throw out like a specific temperature. I can tell you I've logged 20-mile days in them in 75, 80 degree weather. I would say that's the upper limit of where I would want them, right? But so I think it's like anything below that absolutely is going to work. And then two, like, I think it depends on your determined nature of wanting the pant at some of those temperatures before. Like if you're just super adverse to wearing a short, you can wear them in these hotter conditions. But, for me personally, if it's 70 degrees or hotter, I'm going to want to wear shorts if the trail conditions are okay for me to wear shorts in. But like for instance, though, when we were out hiking the Appalachian Trail a couple of years back, there was a lot of people hiking in Virginia in pants in the summer, right? Like, and man, it looked so hot. But there were people that were like, clearly they just didn't want to not hike in pants. They liked the protection. They didn't want things touching their legs. Maybe they didn't want to get their legs dirty throughout the day. It looked hot, right? But like in that scenario, like I wish I could have gone back and given them these joggers because they could have had that protection that they were wanting out of a pant, but been 10 times more comfortable. So yeah, temperature range, it's tough to say. Like I would wear these in the winter. Like I would literally snowshoe in these because of just mobility and things. But then I've also worn them in temperatures up to 80 degrees. So big range of motion. Obviously, some of those temperatures are going to be more comfortable than others in them. But and that really, I think that answers all of the questions. So we'll give you like 10 more seconds to pop any other questions into the chat. But other than that, this has been fun. It's always good to do these live streams and go through some of these questions and talk a little bit about the design of them as well. Like we already mentioned, we did a very long podcast. I say very long. I don't actually know how long it was, but it was a great podcast. We got really into it and we really enjoyed it. And go listen to that, right? We give some really specific use cases where we used them. Including the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim hike that we did in early April. And they were flawless for that specific adventure. And we had guys that were literally taking off their pants to hike in their underwear because they got too hot. And then over here, we're sitting in the snow and we're getting hailed on and snowed on. So, talk about a dynamic day. And I never once thought about being uncomfortable on my legs wearing the joggers throughout that whole thing. So if you want more of the story on that, more of the backstory on just other testing and prototyping we did on these, and just the whole gamut of what brought this product to life, go check that out on the Live Ultralight podcast. You can listen to that here on YouTube. You can also find that on your podcasting app of choice. So, okay, I'm not seeing any other questions in here, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you again for being here for the live stream. Thank you again for all of you guys that have already purchased the joggers. Our shipping team has been working very hard to get as many of these out, but there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of orders. So they're working their best to get them out the door, and hopefully we'll have them very, very soon. Definitely excited for you guys to get them. Definitely excited for you guys to take them into the field and have them bring, that next level of comfort to some of these backpacking and hiking trips that you'll be doing. So